Welcome back to part 2 of our deep dive into dark psychology and manipulation. You're back. That means you're ready to see the rest of the game. If you're joining us for the first time, we are pulling back the curtain on the invisible strings that control human behavior. In part 1, we covered the dark triad and the first 10 tactics used to erode your reality. If you haven't seen that yet, I highly recommend you watch it after this. But right now, stay where you are. We are entering section 3, social engineering. In this phase, the manipulator stops looking at your heart and starts looking at your environment. We're going to explore tactics 11 through 40. We're going to look at how predators use authority, peer pressure, and even false generosity to trap you in debts you never asked for. By the end of this video, you won't just be able to spot a manipulator. You will have the tools to shut them down instantly. Before we dive into Tactic 11, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. This community is for the seekers, the thinkers, and the people who refuse to be sheeple in a world of wolves. Let's get back to work. Let's look at Tactic 11, the appeal to authority. Section 3, the social engineering. If the first 10 tactics were about internal emotions, these next 10 are about the external world. These are the tactics used by grandmasters. People who want to control how you see your place in society, your job, and your circle of friends. Tactic 11, the appeal to authority, the false expertise. Human beings have a biological glitch that makes us submissive to authority. We see a white lab coat, a suit and tie, or a wall full of diplomas, and our critical thinking drops by half. The book explains that a manipulator will drape themselves in the symbols of power. They will drop the names of famous people they supposedly know, or use complex jargon that makes them sound like an expert in a field they barely understand. Why? Because if you believe they are above you in knowledge or status, you are less likely to question their motives. They use this borrowed authority to make their demands seem like professional advice or objective truth, when in reality, it is just a way to keep you from saying no. Tactic 12, isolation, the silent cage. A predator cannot hunt a buffalo if the whole herd is watching. They have to get the buffalo alone. Isolation is the most dangerous tactic used in toxic relationships and cults. It starts subtly. They might say, "I don't really like the way your best friend talks to you," or "Your family is so judgmental, we should just stay home tonight." Slowly, they create friction between you and everyone who truly cares about you. The goal is to make them your only source of feedback. If you have no one to tell you, "Hey, the way they are treating you isn't normal," then the manipulator's version of reality becomes the only one you have. They want to be your world, your news, and your oxygen. Tactic 13, reciprocity, the golden handcuffs. This is a tactic used by some of the most successful people in history. It relies on the rule of exchange. If I give you a gift, you feel a deep psychological itch to give me something back. A manipulator will do something generous for you that you didn't even ask for. They might buy you an expensive lunch or handle a problem for you at work. But this isn't a gift, it's a debt. They hold on to that favor like a weapon. Later, when they ask you for something that makes you uncomfortable, they'll remind you of how supportive they've been. You feel obligated to say yes because your brain hates the feeling of owing someone. They have essentially bought your loyalty with a sandwich. Tactic 14, social proof, the crowd effect. We look to others to see how we should behave. If 10 people are laughing at a joke, we feel like we should laugh too. Manipulators weaponize this by creating a false crowd. They might say, "Everyone in the office thinks you're being difficult," or "All my friends agree that you're overreacting." Notice they never give names. By making you feel like the odd one out, they pressure you to conform. They want you to believe that the tribe has rejected you. And since we are social animals, that fear of rejection is often enough to make us fold and do exactly what they want. Tactic 15, the foot in the door, the incremental yes. This is a classic sales tactic, but in dark psychology, it's used to bypass your moral boundaries. The manipulator starts by asking for a yes that is so small it's impossible to refuse. Can I just have 5 minutes of your time? Once you say yes to the 5 minutes, you are much more likely to say yes to the 30-minute coffee. Once you say yes to the coffee, you're more likely to agree to a small project. It's a ladder. Each yes makes the next yes easier. They are slowly training your brain to comply with them. Before you know it, you are agreeing to things that would have horrified you 3 months ago. Tactic 16, the door in the face, the strategic retreat. This is the opposite of the foot in the door. Here, the manipulator starts with a request so massive and ridiculous that they know you will say no. Can I borrow $5,000? You say, absolutely not. Then they sigh, act a little disappointed, and say, okay, I understand. Could you at least lend me $50 to get through the week? Because the $50 sounds so much smaller compared to $5,000, you feel a sense of relief and a desire to meet them halfway. You agree to the $50. The secret? They only ever wanted the $50. They used the big request to make the real request look like a reasonable compromise. Tactic 17, scarcity, the panic button. Human beings value what is rare. Manipulators create artificial scarcity to force you to make a decision without thinking. In dating, this looks like playing hard to get or suddenly becoming unavailable to make you panic and chase them. In business, it's the this offer is only good for the next hour pressure. By creating a sense of now or never, they shut down your logical brain, the prefrontal cortex, and activate your emotional brain, the amygdala. When you are in a state of fear of missing out, you make impulsive, low-quality decisions that almost always benefit the manipulator. Tactic 18, negative reinforcement, the training. This is how we train animals, but it's devastating when used on humans. Negative reinforcement is the removal of a bad stimulus when a desired behavior is performed. Imagine a boss who is constantly hovering, nitpicking, and yelling at you. But the moment you stay late and work overtime, they suddenly become nice and stop the yelling. They're literally training you like a dog. They use their bad mood as a cage, and the only way you can get out of that cage is by doing exactly what they want. You learn to perform for them just to get a moment of peace. Tactic 19, the pity play, the victim mask. This is one of the most effective tactics against kind-hearted people. The manipulator doesn't act strong. They act weak. They tell you stories about their crazy ex, their horrible childhood, or their bad luck. They want you to feel sorry for them. Why? Because it's very hard to set a boundary with someone you pity. If you try to hold them accountable for a lie, they'll bring up their trauma to make you feel like the bad guy for even bringing it up. They weaponize your empathy to make themselves immune to criticism. Tactic 20, gaslighting by proxy, the flying monkeys. Sometimes, the manipulator doesn't do the work themselves. They recruit flying monkeys, people who believe the manipulator's lies, to do the dirty work for them. They will tell their friends a twisted version of a story where you are the villain. Then those friends will come to you and say, I heard what you did. You should really apologize. Now, it's not just one person against you. It's an entire group. This is designed to break your spirit and make you feel like you are truly the problem, even when you are the victim. Section 4, the subconscious hijack. We've talked about social pressure and emotional traps, but now we're going to go deeper. We are going into the realm of subliminal influence. These are the tactics that don't even wait for your brain to process a sentence. They target your nervous system, your biology, and your ancient instincts. The book refers to these as stealth tactics because there is no logical argument to fight back against. You don't hear these tactics. You feel them. Tactic 21, mirroring and matching the false reflection. We touched on this briefly with narcissists, but as a standalone tactic, it is a masterwork of biological hacking. Think about how you feel when you're with a best friend. You naturally start to sit the same way, use the same slang, and even breathe at the same rhythm. This is called limbic resonance. It's how humans signal safety to one another. A manipulator will do this on purpose. If you lean back, they lean back. If you speak slowly and softly, they lower their voice to match yours. If you use certain metaphors, maybe you use sports analogies or tech talk, they will adopt that exact vocabulary within minutes. Why it's dangerous. Your brain is hardwired to trust people who are like you. When someone mirrors your physical and verbal behavior, your stranger danger alarm shuts off. You feel a sudden, unearned sense of chemistry. You think you've met a kindred spirit, but in reality, you've just met a chameleon who has adjusted their scales to match your environment. They are building a bridge of trust just so they can walk across it and take what they want. Tactic 22, the pattern interrupt, the mental reset. This is a high-level tactic used to bypass your critical thinking. Your brain loves patterns. When you walk into a store, you expect a certain greeting. When you start an argument, you expect certain responses. A manipulator will intentionally break the pattern to freeze your brain. Imagine you are angry and confront someone about a lie. You expect them to get defensive. Instead, they suddenly stop, look at you with total calm, and ask, "Is that a new watch? It's beautiful." Or they might suddenly burst into laughter in the middle of a serious moment. In that split second, your brain experiences a glitch. You are searching for the correct response, but the pattern has been broken. Psychologists call this a transderivational search. For about 3 to 5 seconds, you are in a state of high suggestibility. A master manipulator will use those 5 seconds of your confusion to plant a new idea or a command that your brain will accept without questioning, simply because it's looking for any logic to latch onto. Tactic 23, anchoring, the emotional remote control. This technique comes from NLP or neuro-linguistic programming. It involves anchoring a specific emotion to a specific physical touch or sound. Imagine a manipulator is talking to you while you're laughing and feeling great. While you're in that high state, they lightly touch your shoulder in a very specific way. They do this 3 or 4 times over a month whenever you're happy. Later, when they need to influence you or calm you down after they've done something wrong, they will touch that exact same spot on your shoulder in the exact same way. Without you realizing it, your brain triggers the happy chemicals associated with that anchor. They're literally installing buttons on your body that they can press to change your mood. They are bypassing your logic and speaking directly to your central nervous system. Tactic 24, the false choice, the illusion of freedom. Manipulators love to give you freedom, as long as that freedom leads exactly where they want you to go. This is a favorite of the Machiavellian. Instead of saying, "Do this task for me," which might trigger your resistance, they ask, "Would you rather finish that report by 5 p.m. today, or would you prefer to get it done first thing tomorrow morning?" Notice that neither option includes you not doing the report. By giving you 2 choices, they distract you from the fact that you didn't agree to the task in the first place. You feel empowered because you made a choice, but the manipulator is the one who drew the boundaries of that choice. It's a way of making your submission feel like an act of your own will. Tactic 25, the whimper, the power of vulnerability. We usually think of manipulators as aggressive, but the book highlights the vulnerable manipulator. This person uses the whimper. When they want something from you, they don't demand it. They talk about how overwhelmed they are. They talk about their anxiety or their bad day. They make themselves look small and helpless. This triggers your caregiver instinct. You feel a biological urge to protect them and solve their problems. You end up doing their work, paying their bills, or forgiving their betrayals because you feel like they can't help it. They aren't using strength to control you. They are using your own kindness as a weapon against you. They are the victim who is secretly the victor. Tactic 26, the assumptive close, moving the goalposts. This is a tactic used to steamroll over your boundaries by acting as if the decision has already been made. A manipulator won't ask, "Are we going to my parents' house for Christmas?" They will say, "I've already told my mom we'll be there by 10 a.m., so we should probably leave early to beat the traffic." By assuming the yes, they put the burden of conflict on you. To say no, you have to create a problem or make it awkward. Most people are conflict averse, so they just go along with it to keep the peace. The manipulator knows that your desire for a quiet life is stronger than your desire for autonomy. Tactic 27, the word salad, the mental exhaustion. Have you ever tried to have a serious conversation with someone, and 10 minutes later you find yourself confused, exhausted, and somehow apologizing for something you didn't do? That is word salad. When you catch a manipulator in a lie, they will respond with circular, confusing, and illogical stream of sentences. They will bring up past arguments, change the subject, use circular logic, and throw out red herrings. The goal: they aren't trying to win the argument with facts. They are trying to wear you out. They want to make the conversation so painful and confusing that you eventually just drop the subject just to make the talking stop. It is a war of attrition where the person who is willing to be the most irrational wins. Tactic 28, negative body language, the subtle punishment. Manipulators use their bodies as a volume knob for their approval. They don't have to yell to tell you you're doing something wrong. They can use microaggressions, a heavy sigh when you speak, a slight roll of the eyes, or turn their body away from you just slightly while you're sharing something important. It's a form of intermittent punishment. You start to subconsciously monitor their every movement. You become a people pleaser, constantly adjusting your behavior to avoid that sigh or that look. They have successfully moved the control center of your life from your own heart to their facial expressions. Tactic 29, the halo effect, the perfection mask. This is why manipulators often dress so well, speak so eloquently, or maintain such a perfect public image. The halo effect is a cognitive bias where we assume that if a person is good in one area, like being attractive or successful, they must be good in all areas, like being honest and kind. The manipulators spend a lot of time polishing the mask. They want you to think, someone this successful couldn't possibly be a liar, or they're so handsome, they must be a good person. They use their halo to blind you to the dark triad, traits hiding just beneath the surface. Tactic 30, sandwiching the hidden attack. This is a favorite in the workplace. It's the art of hiding a devastating criticism between two pieces of fake praise. I love your creativity, and I think you're a great part of the team, but your attention to detail is completely lacking and you're dragging the project down. However, I know you've got a great spirit. The brain tends to remember the beginning and the end of the sentence, the primacy and recency effects. The manipulator uses the bread of the sandwich to make the meat, the attack, go down easier. You walk away feeling slightly insulted but unable to complain because they were so nice at the start and the finish. It's a way to erode your confidence while maintaining the nice guy image. Section 5, the master tactics and the psychological fortress. We have walked through the shadows. We have seen the traps, the mirrors, and the invisible strings. But knowledge without action is just a different kind of prison. The book concludes with the most important lesson of all, how to become untouchable. The final 10 tactics are not about how they hunt you. They are about how you become the one thing a manipulator cannot handle, a person who is fully awake. Tactic 31, the gray rock method, the art of being boring. This is the ultimate defensive tactic for dealing with narcissists and high-conflict personalities. A manipulator is an emotional vampire. They feed on your reactions. They want you to get angry, to cry, to defend yourself, or to argue. That reaction is their supply. The tactic: you become a gray rock. Imagine a plain, boring, gray rock on the side of the road. No one notices it. No one wants to talk to it. When the manipulator tries to gaslight you or bait you into an argument, you give non-responses. Okay, I see. That's an interesting perspective. You keep your face neutral. You keep your voice flat. You offer zero emotional hooks. When they realize they can no longer get a rise out of you, they get bored, like any predator. If the prey doesn't move, they eventually move on to find a more reactive target. Tactic 32, radical transparency, the sunlight cure. Manipulators thrive in secrecy. They use faux secrets and triangulation because they rely on you keeping their behavior quiet. The tactic: you bring everything into the light. If a manager says something inappropriate to you in private, you respond in a way that includes others. I want to make sure I understood you correctly. Did you just say that my promotion is dependent on me doing you a personal favor? Let's clarify that with HR present. By refusing to play the secret game, you destroy their leverage. A manipulator is like a shadow. They vanish the moment you turn on the lights. Tactic 33, the broken record, the boundary shield. When you set a boundary, a manipulator will try to negotiate it. They will use word salad or guilt tripping to make you change your mind. The tactic: you pick one simple, clear sentence and you repeat it exactly the same way, over and over. I am not comfortable lending you money. When they say, but I thought we were friends, you say, I understand, but I am not comfortable lending you money. When they say, you're being so selfish, you say, I hear you, but I am not comfortable lending you money. By refusing to engage with their reasons, you stay out of the trap. You don't offend, you don't engage, you just remain a wall. Tactic 34, cognitive reframing, taking back the narrative. The book explains that a manipulator tries to frame your reality. They want to label you as crazy or unreliable. The tactic: you reframe their attack as an observation of their behavior. If they say you're too sensitive, you reframe it. It's interesting that you label my standards for respect as sensitivity. It seems like you have a hard time meeting those standards. You aren't defending yourself. You are analyzing them. You have moved from the defense to the judge. Tactic 35, time delaying the logic buffer. Manipulators use scarcity and false urgency to make you act before you even think. The tactic: you implement a mandatory 24-hour rule. No matter how urgent the request is, your response is, I need to sleep on this before I give you an answer. This time buffer allows your adrenaline to fade and your logical brain to come back online. Most manipulation tactics have a half-life. They only work in the heat of the moment. If you walk away for a day, the spell usually breaks. Tactic 36, identifying the why, the hidden agenda. Every move a manipulator makes as a goal. The book suggests that whenever you feel a weird emotion, guilt, sudden affection, or confusion, you ask yourself one question: what does this person want me to do right now? If they're being extra nice, do they want a favor? If they're being extra mean, do they want you to feel small so you'll work harder for their approval? Once you identify the intent, the tactic becomes obvious and loses its power. Tactic 37, the power of the exit, the ultimate leverage. The only person who can truly manipulate you is someone you're afraid to lose. Whether the job, a relationship, or friendship, fear is the anchor of manipulation. The tactic: you must be willing to walk away. The book calls this outcome independence. When you decide that your peace of mind is more important than any specific relationship, you become unmanipulatable. The moment the manipulator realizes you are willing to leave the table, they lose all their power over you. Tactic 38, emotional intelligence, the internal radar. A manipulator targets your unhealed wounds. If you have a deep fear of being not good enough, they will poke that wound. The tactic: you do the inner work. You learn your own triggers. By becoming deeply aware of your own flaws and fears, you take the remote control out of their hands. You can't be baited by a wound that you have already healed. Tactic 39. Selective vulnerability, the shielded heart. You don't have to be an open book to everyone. The tactic: you earn trust slowly. Instead of reciprocity based on a faux secret, you observe how people handle small pieces of information before you give them the big ones. You keep your vault locked until someone has proven, over a long period of time, that they are a safe harbor. Tactic 40. Presence, the awareness anchor. The final tactic isn't a trick at all. It is presence. Manipulation relies on you being in the past guilt or the future anxiety. The tactic: you stay in the now. You listen to your body's signals, that knot in your stomach, that tightness in your chest. Those are your ancient instincts telling you a predator is near. By staying present, you see the micro-expressions and the pattern interrupts as they happen. You see the strings. We've covered 40 tactics. We've looked into the dark triad. We've deconstructed the invisible language of the human predator. But as we close this summary, I want you to remember one thing. You are the master of your own mind. The tactics we discuss today are only powerful when they are hidden. Now that you've seen them, now that you know their names, they can never work on you the same way again. Knowledge is a shield. Awareness is a sword. And your life is your own. Thank you for staying with me through this deep dive masterclass. If this video helped you see the world a little more clearly, then we have done our job. Until next time, stay aware,